According to Business Insider, on December 22nd, a tsunami triggered by a volcanic eruption hit the two most populous Indonesian islands of Java and Sumatra. The waves killed more than 400 people and injured more than 1,400. This one was thought to have occurred after the Anak Krakatau volcanic island erupted and partially collapsed into the sea, sending waves into the Sunda Strait up to 10 feet without warning.
Reuters reports Indonesian authorities warned on Wednesday of extreme weather and high waves around the erupting Anak Krakatau volcano, urging people to stay away from the coast, already devastated by a tsunami that killed more than 400 people. Heavy rains lashed fishing villages along the coast, muddying roads and holding up convoys delivering heavy machinery and aid to isolated areas, while authorities urged residents to stay away from the shore in case of further waves, smashing into the coast on the Sunda Strait between Java and Sumatra Islands.
The future is a wave of a hand away. In case you missed it, here it is again. This is a whole new level of security. No keys or access cards, difficult to steal and copy, but the technology requires a certain level of commitment that's not for the faint-hearted. So this is where the microchip implant story begins, for those who want them at least. A clinical setting, a sterile environment, with some rather daunting bits of medical kit. So talk us through what happens next.
So first part of the procedure is local anaesthetic is applied, so just your hand there. Then we'll use a scalpel just to make a small incision just there. And then finally it's the rather large needle applicator, and that will be pushed just.
I'll stop you there. For me, in my case at least, I think everyone really wants to know is, does it really hurt?
Completely pain-free.
The UK firm Biotech offers implants to businesses and individuals. It's fitted 150 implants to the UK so far, and the number's rising.
Assistive technology for disabled people, we implant. Banking, security, general users, so contactless payments, passport data, all could be stored on these microchips and embedded in your hand. Comes down to convenience, I suppose, for a lot of people. It's very hard to lose your hand. It's easy to lose your keys, your wallet, so a lot of certain demographics want that convenience.
This is one of several implant firms reportedly in discussions with British financial and legal companies. The names of the companies are being closely guarded. This isn't new technology. Microchips have been implanted in pets for many years, but the prospect of implanting them in employees has sparked concerns from trade unions.
Microchipping gives even more control and power to the employer. And that comes with inherent risks and dangers. Those risks and dangers shouldn't just be ignored by an employer. They need to take those into consideration, and they definitely shouldn't be pressuring any workers into being microchipped.
Biotech companies say the technology should be voluntary and that people must have a right to privacy. But with one Swedish firm, Biohacks, claiming to have already implanted 4,000 people, there are worries microchipping could eventually become the new normal. Societies embrace the mobile phone, making us easy to track on a daily basis. But by implanting microchips, there may be few places left to truly escape from technology. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera, London.
CNN reports thousands of people are being evacuated and flights rerouted as authorities raise the alert level for the volcano, which triggered a deadly tsunami in Indonesia on Saturday. On Thursday, Indonesia's National Board for Disaster Management raised the warning level for the Anak Krakatau volcano to 3, the second highest rank. It earlier appeared to be calming down following Saturday's eruption, which caused a 10-foot-high tsunami across the Sunda Strait, killing more than 430 people and displacing tens of thousands.
According to Reuters, Israeli warplanes attacked the Syrian capital of Damascus with missiles on Tuesday. An arms depot was hit in the attack, injuring 3 Syrian soldiers. A Syrian military official appeared on state-sponsored TV and said, "Our air defenses confronted hostile missiles launched by Israeli warplanes from above the Lebanese territories and downed most of them before reaching their targets." The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a UK-based war monitor, said Israeli missiles were launched from above the Lebanese territories and targeted western and southwestern Damascus rural areas. Gizmodo reports that state media says Russia tested a new hypersonic glide missile system Wednesday under direct orders from President Vladimir Putin. The new system, called the Avangard, utilizes an intercontinental ballistic missile and a hypersonic glide vehicle and is supposed to travel at roughly 5 times the speed of sound. The newly designed system, which Russia claims can circumvent all existing missile defense systems in the world, reportedly hit a target at the Kura missile test range, located in an extremely isolated town in Russia's Far East.
Discontent has been simmering in Tunisia for months. There have been mass demonstrations, even a nationwide strike, to vent resentment over soaring living costs and unemployment. But it's the death of a journalist on Monday that could ignite the anger. Protesters have been clashing with police for a second day, responding to Abdelrazak Zorgi's online post calling for a revolt.
This is a call to the unemployed in Kasserine. Let us start a revolution. I will demonstrate on my own and I will set myself on fire. For 8 years I've been trying to find work, year after year. Nothing happens. Everything is lies.
Zorgi's funeral drew huge crowds and turned into demonstrations. Zorgi set himself on fire in protest, just like a street vendor in 2011, whose death gave birth to the Arab Spring and brought the 23-year rule of President Zain al-Abidine Ben Ali to an end. Tunisia enjoyed a relatively smooth transition to democracy, but has failed to fire economically. Tunisians are now feeling the pinch. Unemployment is at 15%, inflation is at a record high, and a $2.8 billion loan from the IMF 2 years ago came on the condition of economic reform. Just last month, around 2/3 public sector workers stopped work to demand better wages and to march for Tunisians who they said were struggling to survive, a sentiment echoed in Zorgi's post.
They don't have anything to eat to fill their stomachs. People protest, but the authorities call us terrorists. They just tell us to shut up.
Zorgi said the promises of the Arab Spring remain unfulfilled. The response to his death could force the government to confront how to deliver for its people while satisfying those it owes money. Miriam Nahond, Al Jazeera.
They started by protesting against shortage of bread and rising inflation. But 7 days on, the demand has completely changed. They're now demanding the government end its 29-year rule and step down. The government, which is led by President Omar al-Bashir, has responded using tear gas and live ammunition. President Omar al-Bashir addressed his supporters on Tuesday. He accused the protesters of being influenced by external agents.
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for your support and enthusiasm, which is a response to every foreign agent, traitor, outlaw and destructive person. You are the ones responding to them right now. From here, you are responding to all the traitors and foreign agents. I support you, and with your support, I will be back here next year.
Thousands came out to protest in the capital anyway. Some opposition groups have voiced support to the protesters. They say the people have legitimate reasons for turning an economic crisis into a political crisis for the government.
We cannot at this moment lower our demands to economic ones only. The protesters started demonstrating over bread, fuel and financial instability. However, they're now demanding the toppling of the regime and changing it. The masses have realized that there is a strong relationship between the economy and politics. The regime has promised several times before to correct its path. The crisis is the nature of the regime, which spends a lot of money on protecting itself and on buying loyalty and support.
President Bashir has faced protesters before, but throughout his reign, he's never had to face protests this big. Protests that those participating in seem determined to keep going till their demands are met. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Khartoum.
According to a report by Gizmodo, public health experts previously warned about clinics that offer unapproved and untested stem cell treatments. However, a recent report from the CDC underscores the health risks these procedures can have. The report found that an outbreak linked to stem cell injections contaminated with bacteria sickened at least 12 people this year. Fortunately, while all patients reportedly needed to be hospitalized due to their infections, no one died as a result of the outbreak. The infections were all reportedly linked to stem cell products distributed by a California company called Livion.
These teachers say they don't want to be paid in local bond notes, Zimbabwe's surrogate currency. The government insists the notes are equivalent to the US dollar. But on the black market, they are constantly losing value. That's why workers want their salaries in dollars, so they can at least afford the basics.
There's no festive season at the moment for the poor, the working class in Zimbabwe. It is going to be a festive season for the rich elite. They have the bourgeois class and the ruling elite. They are going to, of course, enjoy it. But for the ordinary peasant, the ordinary worker, there's nothing for them.
Prices of basic goods have more than tripled in just a few weeks. Some people say they are barely able to buy the essentials, never mind the luxuries.
The mood is very different this time. Last year, Robert Mugabe was forced to resign as president by the army. Many people really hoped his departure would usher in a new and more prosperous era.
Fuel, cash and medicines are in short supply. After decades of government mismanagement and alleged abuse of public funds, it seems the situation is getting even worse.
The economy is just reaching a point of explosion. We have issues which have been happening for the last 10 years. Trade deficits. We're importing more than what we're exporting. And to date, we have a cumulative trade deficit of $30 billion.
Other Zimbabweans say there is really nothing they can do about the current situation. Challenging the government is sometimes not an option. It can be too risky.
We cannot demonstrate, not demonstrate around here. If you demonstrate, the police will be around, chasing people around. At the end of the day, you die. So just look at your own means to survive, feed your own family, that's all.
As anger and frustration grows over the economy, the general sentiment here is that it's not compliments, but complications of the season in Zimbabwe. Haru Mutasa, Al Jazeera, Harare.
According to Business Insider, the behavioral patterns of animals are being disrupted by climate change and urbanization. In order to survive, animals are being forced to adapt to these changes in their altered environments. For some, that means relocating, tweaking their behavior, or changing their physical appearance. For example, researchers have found that the tawny owl's feathers have changed color due to climate change. As winters become milder, there's been an increase in brown-colored owls. Warmer temperatures are also causing monarch butterflies to delay their mass migration, while pink salmon have started making their migration earlier due to rising water temperatures.
On Wednesday, Gizmodo reported the Health Plus Surgery Center in Saddlebrook, New Jersey, sent letters to more than 3,700 patients who visited between January 1st through September 7th. According to the letter, an investigation by the New Jersey Department found Health Plus staff often failed to properly sterilize surgical tools between uses. As a result, the patients could be at risk of having contracted blood-borne infections and have been recommended to go get blood tests for hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and HIV.
According to Business Insider, since President Donald Trump called out Pfizer and other drug makers for prescription drug price increases in July, the issue is largely stalled. Now, though, pharmaceutical companies are planning drug price hikes for January. Experts say these upcoming increases are expected to be larger than usual, and drug companies are raising their prices as people begin to make New Year's resolutions. In total, 41 drugs will raise their prices in January.
A couple in Utah has been arrested and charged with child abuse after they allegedly subjected their 9-year-old daughter to waterboarding as a way to punish her. According to reports, the girl's father, Joseph Mitchell, and her stepmom, Ilaria Mitchell, abused the child on 3 different occasions. Police were contacted after the child was seen at an emergency room last month and appeared to have marks on her wrists. The girl reportedly told detectives during a visit to the home. The couple punished her by tying her hands behind her back, placing a towel over her head, and running water over her face in a bathtub. Police said in a statement, quote, "The 9-year-old stated that she cannot breathe and it hurts when this happens." The Daily Herald reported the child also alleged the stepmother punched her in the face and caused her nose to bleed. The couple was booked at a Utah County jail on 1 count of felony child abuse each.
It takes several pieces of equipment to install an intravenous line in a patient. Needles, taps, catheters and rubber gloves must be sterile and discarded after use. These are the cheapest of materials for one of the simplest of procedures. There are no apparent shortages here at the outpatient clinics of St. Andreas Hospital in Patra, but staff say appearances are misleading.
We had a budget of 60 to 65 million euros before the crisis. Today our budget is 15 to 18 million. This creates enormous problems.
The hospital is also short-staffed. This doctor says there are just 2 nurses for the outpatient clinics serving this city of 200,000.
On most days, this room is full of stretchers with a queue of more outside shouting and pushing to get in, and they come from towns all over the region. It can be asphyxiating. We can barely walk in here.
Shortages have shut down clinics in smaller regional hospitals, so St. Andreas also takes in patients from the broader region of more than 1 million people. This hospital had a staff of 1,200 before the financial crisis of 2008. It is now down to 750, and at least 50 doctors are urgently needed. These trends in personnel and materials reflect the broader cuts in government health spending. In just the past 3 years, it has fallen from $7 billion to $4.2 billion. That means Greece is spending less than 10% of its budget on healthcare. The European Union average is over 15%. It's driven many who can afford it into private healthcare.
We're only here for financial reasons. Of course, national health doctors are more experienced than private sector doctors, but from the moment you arrive here, you're tied up for hours. Patients get wary. There are lots of people in line.
The dedication of the doctors and nurses who remain in the public sector has been rewarded with a 40% pay cut during the crisis. And no government has tightened health spending more than that controlled by the Syriza party, which has made a point of producing even higher surpluses than creditors demand with which to repay the country's debt. Next year's budget contains a further reduction in salaries for hospital staff, a move which will anger many. John Psaropoulos, Al Jazeera, Patra.
After being inundated from the sea, now flooded from above. Along much of the coastline devastated by Saturday's tsunami, torrential rain poured more misery on already awful conditions. Like their neighbours, Ahmad Hidayat and his family sort through the possessions from their flooded home. He knows they won't likely dry out until the other side of the rainy season, which is weeks away.
Everything's wet. It's all broken. There's nothing left.
He has no choice but to move back into his house on this exposed coast.
This is my home. I have no other place to go. But if I had money, I would buy somewhere safer to live.
The rain is also threatening to cut off the main coastal road upon which the recovery operation depends. Parts of this road were damaged by the tsunami and the rain has flooded other parts of it. It's still passable, but there's a big effort on now to make sure it stays that way. The route is also increasingly important for the tons of aid that is arriving. Poor visibility makes it difficult for experts to predict what the Anak Krakatau volcano will do next. Further eruptions could cause another wave. A tsunami warning remains in force, and false alarms, quickly spread on social media, have caused panic and people to seek safety on higher ground. Proof of the fear that the volcano, still rumbling in the murk beyond the horizon, is able to evoke.
Most things we flush down the toilet we never want to see again. Not Paula Stanton. In 2009, she accidentally flushed her diamond wedding band down the toilet and thought it was gone forever. Her husband had given it to her to celebrate an anniversary. 9 years later, public works employees were doing maintenance on a manhole near Paula's New Jersey home and found a ring. Coincidentally, one of the workers had worked on Paula's home years before and remembered she mentioned she lost a ring in the toilet. Paula and her long-lost ring got reunited just in time for Christmas.
Hugged him and kissed him, and so you are a Christmas angel. I cannot believe this happened.
After losing the ring, Paula's husband replaced it with a similar one, but now the original fits perfectly alongside it as well. And don't worry, Paula thoroughly cleaned the ring before putting it on again.